ready to learn with us on Bass University Live. Bass University Live starts now. Welcome to Bass University Live. Good to have you guys with us. We're taking on a topic, man. It's changing everything. The Coike is the latest and greatest. It's been that way for a little while, but it just continues to dominate. And Chris Johnston is going to be with us. He dominated the Santee Cooper tournament with the Coike. I don't know how to say it. One of those ways, but it's hide up tackle, the full cast, and he had like I don't know, man, 18-pound lead or margin of victory is what I'm looking for, is what he had. So we're gonna be diving into that because I've got a lot of questions. I've been playing around with it for a while now, and I've struggled. I've had some success, and it's going to be fun to talk to Chris and see how that all played out, and talk to him about some other stuff too. Have you downloaded the Bass U app, guys? Got to do it. The Bass U app is just a fantastic learning tool. I've been working with the app in particular, and my high school fishing team, which consists of Jack Weisenberger and my son Jake, who, congratulations to those boys. They just won the MLF TBF Tri-State Championship. Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey states were represented in that tournament down on the Chesapeake, and they won. They had the overall bag by about, I don't know, they had 15.8. I think 15.2 was second place in that event. So it was an awesome job by those guys, and congratulations to them. But been working with those guys, one of the hot baits, and we had Todd Castledine talking about the hybrid hunter, and he was in classroom teaching about it. So my boys were working with it, and we caught one of our fish on the Chesapeake with that bait, and I'm having my boys watch the seminars, and then we go out and we execute and we practice and we adjust and we learn. That's the way to use it. So another person, competitor in the Susquehanna Fishing Tackle Tournament, their Summer Slam, which we just had, came up to me and talked to me how they use it on the way to the ramp. So many guys listen on the way to the ramp. Great place to listen. If you're going to catch up on a technique, that's the way to do it. Right before you go, you think it's going to be a lipless bait or a flip and bite. We've got the greatest anglers in the world at your fingertips, and it's all there in one place. Go check it out. Download the Bass U app. Really excited to announce, as I back up here, the Humminbird. We've been with Humminbird for quite a while, and I am upgrading. The Bass U rig is going to be upgraded to. We're upgrading from Solix to Explorers and Apex units on the Bass U ride. So we're going to take you through that whole process, starting at Bass Tech Sonar, where they're going to be doing the install for us, and we're going to be there working and watching and helping and learning through that process. And then we're going to take you out on the water and first impressions with the fully new upgrade, fully integrated and networked into the One Boat network system with Raptors and my Minn Kota Quest. So that's all. Very excited about that. We'll take you guys through that process with us. So got a lot of great stuff coming up. We just launched last week. I hope you watched John Cruz flipping seminar. We love it. That's one of me and my son's favorite ways to catch them. And it's one of the ultimate power fishing strategies. And John is amazing teacher. And you want to go check that seminar out. That was released last week. So make sure you go back and check it if you haven't done that yet. So without any further ado, let's bring in the man, the champ, picking up a Century belt.
Sorry, I was distracted. How's it going, Pete?
It's going good, Chris, man. I appreciate you taking some time and hanging out with us, man. But what a great win, man. You crushed it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here. And it was probably one of the best fishing weeks I'll ever have. I'm just going to mute my phone here. It keeps buzzing. Unbelievable on Santee Cooper. I didn't expect that going into it. I couldn't do anything wrong. Even if I lost a fish, it seemed like I'd pick up that Coike and throw it at the next dock, and I'd catch one the same size or bigger to make up for it. So, like I said, just a phenomenal week. And I wish fishing was always that fun.
Man, it looked fun. They were all big. And man, I mean, you brought it up. Let's just dive right in. What is it about this bait? Like, how is it doing this? I mean, there's not supposed to be any new gadgets out there that can catch fish like this, but this seems to be doing it.
It's incredible. I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it with my own eyes, how well it worked. And the fish I was catching are fish that I don't think you'd catch on any other bait. Like if you threw a wacky rig in there, if you threw a jig or a vibrating jig in there, I don't think let's say I caught 20 big ones in a day, I don't think you would have caught one or two of them. Like maybe caught one or two of those big fish. But this Coike is something the fish have not seen. And I think it's there hasn't been a bait come out like this in the past few years. I guess the minnow did it, but this I feel like almost compares to the A-rig craze, when the fish have never seen an A-rig, and you could go on any lake, throw that A-rig out there, and you were catching those big females that are super hard to catch, and they look at our standard baits and they just watch it go by them. But when they seen that A-rig, they just had to eat it. And I feel like this Coike is a similar situation, in my opinion, that you're catching fish that you wouldn't normally catch. And I just think bass in general are very curious creatures. They like to investigate things that they haven't seen before. Even if you go like swimming or scuba diving with bass, they come up, they check you out. They're very curious. So when they see this Coike, people call it a sea urchin, whatever it looks like, they're like, huh, or maybe they think it's a big spider, but they've never seen anything like it before. So they're like, these bass are probably 7-10 years old. They just want to come up. They're like, what is that thing? They're just looking at investigating. All of a sudden it twitches, trying to get away from them. They get all excited, and I think their fins start moving, and then they see it trying to escape from them. Well, they want to touch and feel it, see what it is, and they don't have fingers and hands like us. So what else are they going to do? They eat it. They just want to try it. And I don't have any other way to explain it, but just something fish have never seen before, and they obviously cannot resist it. And it's the biggest ones that are eating it.
Yeah, that's amazing to see that. And the image that Justin just put up was fantastic, where everybody, all the top 5, all had the same bait on. That everybody caught fish on the same thing. So it was crazy how it dominated like that.
And it was honestly like there was the Coike tournament, and then there was the other part of the tournament. You know what I mean? Like who was going to win out of the people throwing the Coike? Because you're fishing in it was almost like you're fishing a different lake. It was crazy. It's like nothing I've ever seen before.
Man, that is crazy. Did you fire other tools in there just to keep it honest?
No. Why would I? I really on day one of practice is when I first figured it out. I was fishing in the lower lake there, Moultrie, I think it's called. And I was fishing grass, and going into the tournament, I knew Santee Cooper's full of grass. So I was thinking, there's probably going to be one in the grass. The spawn was late. You might get a few spawners, but you weren't going to win that way. You had to figure out the grass. So I was down there fishing grass. I caught a 3-4 pounder and some small ones, but really wasn't very good. And I thought I could change it up. There's a stretch of docks I'm just going to go throw at it. And I'd rigged up a Coike going into it, being like, I'll throw this around some trees, maybe docks, blind fish, and see if I can get a bite. It just happened to be laying on my deck. And first dock I pull up to, I skip that thing under there. And I'm not a Coike expert, but I've fished with a little bit on live scope. I bet on the full cast Coike before that tournament, I'd only caught 4 or 5 bass on it.
Wow.
I've on Murray, actually, the week before, I was throwing that Coike, and I had some 5, 7, 8 pounders come up, live scoping it. They'd look at it, some fall right to the surface, and I couldn't catch them. But just using it, I learned how they'd react to it and what got them kind of going the best. So I just threw it on the dock blind like I would on live scope, and I just started twitching it, like pretending I'm looking at it on the screen. And the first dock, I caught a 4.5 pounder. So I was like, huh, was that lucky or what? And then there was probably about 15, 20 docks. And this night I went down this next dock or second dock. I had a like 6 pounder come out and eat it. I watched it eat it. I shook it off. I was like, all right, I'm on to something here. And I fished those next 15 docks. I had like 4 bites, and they're all good ones. I could see the water was clear. So then I ran every dock in that lower lake, and there's not a lot of docks, but I found a couple docks that had some fish on them. And that's when I figured out the whole Coike thing. And I didn't even throw anything else under the docks.
That's wild, man. What a cool deal. Daniel is saying that the you said it too. The bigger ones seem to bite it. Like what you think that's what it is? It's just, man, it's just they've been there the whole time. It's just something they haven't seen before. Is that why you're getting the bigger ones?
That's what I think. Those big fish have seen all the wacky rigs. They get conditioned to the regular baits we throw. And it's just something those big ones have never seen. And it's a bigger profile. And we were actually talking about it with my cameraman. We're joking, like, I caught more 4+ pounders than I did 2 pounders that week on Santee. Like, I bet you I only caught, I don't know, in a week, 10 fish under 3 pounds on that Coike. And I probably caught 40 fish over 4 pounds. And it was just the bigger fish were eating it. And something else I learned in practice, and I didn't know this, and some people will probably be curious and they'll do it in their practice, is after I got all those bites on day 1 of practice, I thought I'll run that pattern in the upper lake, see if I can find there's more docks and see if I can figure it out up there. So what I did is I put like bobber stops over my treble hook so I couldn't hook them. And I'd skip it under docks. The water's a little more tannicky, so I couldn't see good. And I'd throw it on a dock and I'd twitch it and I'd get a bite and then it'd drop it really quick. Like, you couldn't, not like a jig where they hold on to it. You can kind of get a weight on them, or a Cinco, like, you're okay, let go of the bait. With the Coike, I'd throw it under there, I'd twitch it, and one would grab it. But as soon as I put weight on him, he'd drop it instantly. You could not get a weight on the fish. So I saw a couple of the ones that I shook off, and I was like, I think they're like mid 2s, high 2s, like 3 pounders. And I didn't see any big ones. And I'm like, a lot of these fish I'm getting must be smaller fish. They're dropping it so quick. You know, when you're fishing, the little ones seem to just drop a bait really quick and they hit it light. Sure. Well, that's what they're doing with the Coike. So it kind of threw me for a bit of a curveball. I had tons of bites that day 2 on the mid lake, but I'm like, I couldn't get a feel for how big they were. I thought maybe a lot of them are small, but on Santee Cooper, if you get 15, 20 bites, typically you're going to get 2 or 3 big fish as a rule there. So when it come to tournament time, I'm like, I saw some big fish eat my Coike in that bottom lake because it was clear. I'll go down there, and I think there's some bigger fish. I went down there and it actually hurt me. I weighed 21 pounds, and it wasn't working very good. The docks, the clear water, they didn't reload. There was no fish on them. So I came back up that day. I salvaged my day in that upper lake. I caught 3, about 4. And then day 2, I thought I'll go run where I shook off 20 bites on day 2 of practice, where I thought a lot of small ones. And in the first hour, I think I had 27 pounds. So it turns out a lot of those fish that I thought were small ones, I'm very wrong. They just don't hold on to it so you can get a weight for them, a weight on them on that Coike. They were all actually big ones. There's very few small ones.
Why do you think they're blowing that thing out? It's just they're, like you said, they're just curious. And
as soon as they feel tension on when you go to jerk it, they're literally opening their mouth and just letting it pull out of their mouth. But I think they're just so curious. They just want to try it and see what it is. But then when you hook one, half of them have it down in their throat. So it's like, how are they letting it go so quick in practice and blowing it out? But when you hook one, when they're eating it, they're eating that whole bait. So I think when they're opening their mouth, they're getting all the tentacles and everything in. And that's why we're hooking them so deep. And you're like, oh man, they're actually crushing it. But I think in reality, they're just getting the whole bait in their mouth, trying it. But as soon as they think, oh, something's weird, they just open their mouth and they let it go out.
So the moral of the story is you better pull the trigger on that sucker when you feel a bite.
100%. If you feel a bite, there's no letting them get it better.
Yeah. It seems like that kind of bait, and you're fishing it in the kind of style where it's like, okay, well, it's a benefit to hesitate, but no.
And it's almost like a jerk bait style, right? When a jerk bait, sometimes they're just nipping it, and they're doing the same with a Coike, but they eat the whole thing to get a little sample, and then you surprise them with a treble hook.
Yeah.
However you rig it. It's kind of funny. I feel like 5 years from now, when we're looking at how we rig these Coikes, we'll probably be laughing at myself. I was throwing an open hook under docks and getting hung up. Huge pain in the butt. I feel like in 5 years from now, we'll have these specialized rigs that make it so much weedless and so much better to throw. But for right now, that was the best way for me to have a good hookup ratio.
Yeah, that was incredible because well, like you, there's not that many going on out there. Me and my son are out playing around with it. We're fishing around like some post spawn fish and catching them on it, and we're fishing exposed trebles, and it's like you get near a piece of wood or a piling, and it's gone. You're going for it like you did.
Yeah, I was crawling under so many docks. That's the only thing I don't miss about Santee is crawling under docks, just trying to get that bait back. If there was one stick, a piece of line, or if you touched the post with that hook, every time you would snag it.
No kidding. And they got gators at Santee, right?
Big gators, actually. A lot of snakes. There's more snakes than anything.
Snakes and gators. Yeah, that's nuts. And I'm watching you. I went and I watched some of it live. I watched more of it this morning as I was getting ready to talk to you, and I'm like, man, you're just throwing it up under there. You got to be hanging up every other cast. Were you retrieving it high in the water column to keep it over that stuff, or how are you coming through it?
I wasn't. As a general rule, what I tried to do is if it was 4 feet of water, I wanted to sink 2 feet and keep it at that. I wasn't letting it go to bottom. If I was in 7-8 feet of water, I wanted it halfway down. So I'd be in about four feet down. I wanted it suspended halfway through the dock. So I'm kind of counting it down in my mind when I think it's about halfway down, and then I start working the bait. But you'll see me, I'd be looking under the docks, and I'd see if there's a cross beam, see if there's a brush pile under there. I wasn't looking because I wanted to get close to that stuff. I was trying to avoid it, actually, because I knew if I skip it way under there, I get hung. But what I did find is on the Santee Cooper docks is I would go around the dock. Going to the next one, I would go to the side of the dock because there's usually like a cross beam and stuff on the front. If you go to the side of the dock, you could fish them more efficiently because I could cast all the way into that platform from the side, work it through the whole platform, and then I do one side of it, and then I do the other side of the platform. In 2 casts, I work that whole prime area of the dock. Whereas if I went around the front, there's like 4 openings I'd have to throw in. I have to make 4 casts. But if I threw from the side, I could work that bait all the way through the side of that dock and just be more efficient and get hung up less.
Right. That's I looked at it. I saw those cross members. I'm like, man, how is he getting through all that stuff? But I imagine that might have been a benefit, right? Keeping it up might have been, the actual triggers is getting them to feed upward.
Yeah, and I found that from using live scope over the last 5-6 years with a minnow, with anything, glide bait, the fish want it above their head. So I'm trying to keep that Coike above their head. I'm picturing the fish sitting on bottom, and I'm just twitching above their head, and they're coming up and eating it. So I didn't want it to go to bottom. And saying that, though, I have had instances on shallow docks and stuff where I've thrown it in and work it almost like a jig because it's so shallow. It goes to the bottom. You're popping it off the bottom, and they'll eat it that way too. But for Santee, I was trying to keep it above their head for sure.
Yeah, I got to ask this about the docks, and it's kind of, I want to dive more into the bait and the rigging and stuff, but what's up with the docks on Santee? Like I've fished a few tournaments down there. I don't remember docks being a factor. I don't remember seeing a top 10. I mean, it could have missed it, but it's always been cypress trees and grass beds. But the docks, man, that was the winner.
It was on fire. It was ridiculous. And I think it got better as the tournament went on. It got hotter, it got sunnier, slick conditions. And I think all those fish that were floating around, maybe there's some grass around, they wanted shade. They wanted the water in Santee's clearer than it's ever been. So all those fish that used to live, I feel like, in 2 to 4 feet of water on cypress trees, you can now go to those cypress trees, look at the cypress trees, see on bottom, be like, yeah, there's no fish here, there's no bed.
Wow.
So instead, those fish are like, I'm going to go to a nice shady spot.
Right.
And some of those fish are going under these docks using it as shade. And I'm sure some are going offshore and suspending it a little deeper, but I don't feel like they're sitting in those shallow areas like they used to all year because of the water clarity and changing things up. So, and it's just, bass like docks, they're post spawn. And again, a lot of it was the bait as well. I'm sure there's areas I could have went and thrown that Coike around some deeper cypress trees. I did catch some on it, but it wasn't enough to run in the tournament. The docks were just higher percentage. But if you threw that Coike on grass edges, if you put it in front of those fish, they're going to eat it. But there's not a lot of docks on Santee Cooper, so it made my job much easier. Higher percentage areas were under those shady docks.
That makes a lot of sense. The clear water, driving them under the docks, and the grass. I heard a lot of guys talking about it, like they're letting the grass grow a little bit, or it's taking hold. Something's going on, but there's more grass at Santee this year than in years past.
100%. I hadn't been there in 2 or 3 years, and it's like a whole new lake. You can see down on the bottom, Lake Moultrie, I could see a bedded fish in 9 feet of water. So it's pretty impressive. It was like a 2-pounder too. And in the upper lake, there's areas you can see 4 or 5 feet, no problem. So that's unheard of on Santee. So it's great for the lake. The fishing is taking off like crazy. And I think if you had live scope during our event, people really would have been able to capitalize on that grass and stuff because there's so much grass. I feel like the fish are just kind of roaming on it. It's very hard to take like a Coike and randomly fish in the grass. You'd get the odd bite, but it's just, you can't cover enough water. So that's when I could throw an isolated structure with it, knowing I'm putting that bait in front of their face. That's what just made it much easier for me. But if we had live scope down there, I probably maybe would have been in the top 10, but I don't even know if I would have won it. There's that many big fish down there right now.
It's crazy. It's known for dinosaurs. You know, we've seen it so many times. That's really interesting. Because I was going to ask you that, and I had totally forgot that it's no forward facing in that tournament. I was going to ask you, like, were you able to see them on the pilings? Could you see to cast to them? But you couldn't do that. You just had to blind fish old school.
Yeah, and that's why I went to the structure because blind fishing that bait out in the middle of the grass, you can't cover enough water. You don't know if you're in front of one of the fish. So I went to the docks and it started to work, and I could just run that pattern all over the lake, which was really cool, especially because there's not a lot of docks. So if you found any that were 3 feet or deeper, you could get bit on almost any one of them. So and I'm not against live scope by any means, but it was super cool fishing those docks, not knowing when you were going to get a bite. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. So. That is exciting. Of course, you had figured out that every time you did get a bite, it was 4 pounds or better. So
cool. And you just had to hang on because some of those fish especially the first 2 days, and the third day, I don't think I lost many either. Like I was way under those docks, and you'd hook like a 6-pounder, and you had no business getting it out under that dock. Like it would go around 3 or 4 posts. It would be so hung up. But the nice thing about that Coike is when they ate it, it was so far in their mouth, there was no bait to get hung up on when they're swimming back through the post. So if I just kept pressure, luckily enough of those, a lot of the fish swam back the way they were supposed to, and I could get them out. And I would just hold on. I was using 22-pound Seaguar Tatsu line, held up unbelievable. I was using 20 on the first day. And then I was like, these fish are big. They're going around posts. I'm like, I'm going to up it a little bit and just put the odds a little more in my favor. And yes, like I had a 7-pounder. I think it was around 3 posts and jumping like 10 feet over to the right from where I originally hooked it. My lines around it was a mess. But they swam out, and I was super thankful to get them in.
Heck, did you have any mishaps? Did any get you?
On the final day, I had a 5 on my first cast on the final day. I caught on one dock on day 2 when I said I was going to fish that upper lake. I started on this one dock. I didn't even start on it. I started close to it. I never had a bite on practice. I fished it and it just looked perfect. It was one dock, isolated. It stuck way out from shore, and it had like 6-7 feet of water underneath it on the platform. It looked perfect, and you could see it has a sunken boat on it. But when I fished it on day 2 in the morning, I caught a 5 3/4. The next cast, I caught a 7. And that started my whole morning. They had 27 pounds in an hour. Day 2, I started on that dock. I caught a 5 and change. Or day 3, I started on that dock, caught a 5 and change. Day 4, I'm like, come on, one more fish off this dock. I caught a 5, my second cast of the day, I think. So it really started my day off nice. And then on day 4, the next one I caught was a 6. And it was a little slower, but I knew I was going to get enough, like 5 or 6 bites if I do it all day to have a chance. And I ended up losing like a 5.5, and then I lost a 4. So I had 2 good ones, but I lost the next 2 big ones. And this is at like 9 in the morning. So I was stressing a little bit, but overall, for the number of big fish I ended up hooking, I really can't complain to how many I lost. And then that day, I ended up having a pretty good morning, and I lost like a 5.5 beside the boat. But I don't know if in the end it would have helped me, maybe a couple ounces. So it was a little less stressful when I had to wait in the boat and lost that one.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, 18 pounds is a pretty big margin, but other guys were on that dock pattern, and there's not that many docks.
Yep.
How are you able to like survive? Like, well, I mean, I hear you talking about it. Like, it's amazing that I guess these post-spawn fish were replenishing under those docks.
Yeah.
Seems to be the case, but there's not a lot of docks there. Was there a lot of crowds on them for you?
No, that's what really shocked me, and I was worried about it. I'm like, if there's not that many docks, and the Coike is becoming more popular, I'm like, some of these young guys, especially, they're going to throw that thing under there. They're going to figure it out too, and I'm going to be running into people doing this, and then we're going to be catching these other fish. But shockingly, I ran into a handful of guys fishing docks, but they weren't throwing the Coike. And I could literally go right behind them and throw that thing and catch one. It was kind of funny. There was 2 kids. I don't know how old they were, maybe in their 20s. They were out fun fishing on day 3. And I pulled into a little pocket. It had 3 or 4 docks. And the best dock they were on, they were just finishing fishing it. And actually, he picked up his buddy. He walked down the dock. He fished the dock. I watched him fish it. Then he pulled up to the dock, picked up his buddy, and they were trolling away maybe 50 yards away. And I was working out, and I'm like, I don't think I'll catch one under here, but I'll fire under here. And I caught like a 5 1/4. They had just fished the dock, walked on the dock, and I still caught one right behind them. They were that dialed into that bait. It was amazing.
Wow, that is amazing. And that's such a rarity in today's day and age. But man.
And I don't know that I'll ever have a tournament like that where you were just one step ahead because of that new lure that they haven't seen, where it gave you that much of advantage. So that's why it was so special.
Yeah, it reminds me. Yeah, you remember? Did you see the video when Paul Elias? I think it was on Gunnersville. You brought it up, Alabama rig. Like, he was the first. That's the first recollection I have where somebody did something like that. You know, it's a brand new tool, and the fish were going crazy for it.
And it was the biggest fish. And then I think that tournament, a couple other guys got onto it. People keyed them into it that tournament, and they ended up weighing like 27 to 35 pound. Anyone who threw that bait got bit. It didn't matter if you were on a bridge piling, on the grass. If they saw that bait, they were going to eat it. And that's what it seems like with the Coike. It's crazy.
Well, the big advantage, well, you can't get them. You might have been like half the field might not have had them in that tournament, you know?
So that was another thing that was so hard for me during that tournament, why I need those baits back so bad, was in practice, I think I had 2 full cast Coikes in my boat, 2 good colors. And I'm like, I'm going to need more of these. Like, I'm catching some fish on them. My brother and I, we found some in California on eBay for $120 a pop.
Get out of here.
Yeah, airshipped them, but they didn't show up until day 2 of the tournament. So after day 1, I think I made it through. I had 3, I think, in my boat. I made it through. I had 1 left by the end of the day. And then I got a few from that California shipment, but I started running low on them. So I had to ask a couple other elite anglers, and I'm like, hey, do you mind if do you have an extra like full cast? And obviously they're like, well, why do you need that? I'm like, well, I'm catching a few on it. And they're like, well, what are you throwing it at? And I'm like, wood. So, but it was much easier to bum some after the cut on day 2, because
Yep.
if you're out and a couple of my buddies were like, I got one, you can use it. So I'm in debt right now to a lot of elite anglers that I owe them some koikes. So if I don't have them by the Pasca tank, they might be chasing me down and hunt me down for them. So, and it's kind of funny. I'm actually sponsored by Hide Up. And I called Spro, who kind of distributes them for them, and they're like, in practice, I'm like, can you get me just a couple of these? They're like, let me see. We're checking the warehouse. We're checking for samples. And like the VPs, like I'll check my personal stash. They had nothing. So I couldn't get any from them. And it was me just trying to get whatever I could. Brian New gave me 2. Brian Schmidt gave me 2. And luckily for them, they helped me out so I could get through the tournament and have enough lures.
Man, that's awesome. And yeah, I talked to Smitty about it. He told me that same thing. He said that, you were scrounging to find them. Well, what's going on? I'm sorry, go ahead.
It didn't seem to matter the color. It was just the profile of that bait. So beggars can't be choosers. I took any color I could.
Yeah, I bet. Well, what's going on with Hide Up? Is it gonna be November before they're on the shelf again? What's the update?
There's a few coming in the next week from what I hear. And I don't know how much I'm supposed to say, but there's definitely some coming in. I don't know how they're going to be distributed. I don't know where they're going, but I definitely put my hand up and said, can I get a few? I got some debts to pay back. So I'm hoping to get a handful of them for the Pasca tank. And I owe a couple people some, and I need some for my personal stash. So there is definitely some coming in I think the next week, and they're going to be distributed to some retailers.
Okay. Well, I have I think I had 2 full casts. One melted. That just breaks my heart. It got stuck next to another plastic, and for an hour, and we lost it. But I've got one. So me and my son are playing around with it, and I'm like, we can't rig this thing on a treble hook. Like, we got to save that treble hook rigging for tournament day. Like,
you almost need a hook with a weed guard on it for practice where you're not going to lose it. And then you need some system, and I've been playing around with it. You need some system where a couple of the koikes I lost, the fish actually threw the bait off my treble hook.
Yeah.
So that's how I lost a few. So I've been playing around with different techniques, and I think I got a system. I at least won't lose the koike when a fish bites it. They won't be able to throw it. So I've been playing around with that. So I'm hoping to keep them a little longer with this system.
Okay. Well, yeah, that we had that same thing. We had one pop off, and fortunately, we were able to grab it. It popped off.
Oh, you got lucky.
We so lucky, man. My son actually grabbed it, went in and grabbed it, went in up to his shoulder and caught it before it sank. And but I was seeing somebody that was cutting off a piece of plastic to put on, like, as you thread that treble hook through the bait, you just put a little, like you would on the hard pack that most lures come in. They cut off a piece of plastic and thread it on as a keeper, and that's for them. What do you got cooking? What's your system?
Well, I've seen that. Like, it's almost like how you use like a stinger hook on a spinner bait. You take that piece of plastic and thread it on. I haven't tried that one, but that's one technique. Another technique I learned is if you actually double hook the plastic on the koike. So if you can get each side of that treble hook through, they can't actually throw it because they can't leverage it. So if you have 2 of the treble hooks through, you don't have to hook them as deep. They can't throw it that way either.
That's interesting.
Because they always throw it off one side, but if it can't swing, it can't get thrown off the treble hook because you got 2 treble hooks. So the ball is almost stationary when you're fighting the fish.
I got you. Okay, that makes sense.
And I tried that, and I never lost a ball doing it that way.
Okay,
but there's other harnesses out there now that you can put through the ball, and same idea, almost like a spinnerbait keeper. Put your hook through that spinnerbait keeper. When the harness goes through the ball, it won't throw it that way. So I bet you in the next month or so, there's going to be a couple different ways, and you can pick and choose which way you want to do it.
I got you. Well, just to give a shout out to Scott and Coach. Good to have you guys with us. Wild Bill, good to have you with us hanging out. appreciate you, Wild Bill, rooting for Jake. I know you're on his Instagram. He's always calling you out over there, and I appreciate that. Good to have you guys with us. Chris, I wanted to ask you about the hook. Like, what are you a number one gauge on that bait, or what are you using?
So I had two different hooks. I had a quad hook from Gamakatsu, which was a prototype. Okay. And I lost that under one or two docks. And then I was using a Horizon Gamakatsu treble hook, which actually worked really well as well. It's called an Outsider. It's a 1/0. And what's really cool with that treble hook is the size is important, the 1/0 for that full cast, but it's like a regular treble hook, but the tip actually flares out. So if you run your finger by that treble hook, instead of like an EWG where it's kind of flared in, it's flared out. But once it goes past the barb of the treble hook, it's like a regular old round bend. You got them hooked. But with that tip flared out, anything that touches that treble hook, it just wants to jump into that, whatever it touches. So if it's skin or whatever, it'll jump into that. And that was doing an excellent job on hooking them as well, the Outsider. So those are the two hooks I was using, but both in a 1/0.
In a 1/0, okay. Did you when you run it, did you have the smaller ones? Did you throw? I think what do they have? Two smaller sizes?
There's a 13 millimeter, which I use for some smallmouth fishing. There's the 17, which I've done a lot of, like spotted bass. Seem to love that 17. I hadn't done a ton of fishing with the full cast, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not going to make this mistake again. I had these full cast Coikes before probably most people did in the States, and they sat in my garage for 2 years, and I looked at them like, I am not throwing that stupid looking bait. It's huge. Like I threw maybe the small ones, but I'm like, that full cast, it's just, it's awful looking. And I had that sucker for 2 years. And like in hindsight, I'm like, think of the money I could have made on that thing if I actually had tried it and used it. So my bad on that one. And I'm not going to say a bait looks too stupid anymore.
That's great. That's great. I have a similar story with the chatterbait. I didn't think that was worth anything for 2 years. And I think it was Brian Thrift started winning on it. And then I brought it out. So yeah, but you know what, in your defense and my defense, Chris, there's a lot of crap out there. You know?
There is. Yeah.
And you can waste a lot of time, fishing the crap, So, I mean, I understand what you went through there, So
I'm a believer now. And that's one of the hardest things for me. People ask, oh, does the off season hurt you? You live up north a bit too. And like when we can't fish from like October for me until like February to down to the States, I don't have, typically up until 3 or 4 years ago, I could do the flipping a jig, jerk bait, chatterbait. I can do that with the best of them, I feel like. So I didn't need to like practice new skills. And I'm like, no, I feel like the off season helps me because it makes me want it that much more after sitting in the snow. I want to go fishing. It makes me want it that much more. But over the past few years, I feel like maybe it's catching up to me a little bit because of all these new techniques that are coming out. I don't have that off season to dial them in. And that's maybe a chance I could have took that stupid looking full cast Coike out of my garage and be like, you know what? I'm going to go out for a day and I'm going to sling this thing around and see if it actually works, if I can get a bite on it, different rigging systems. And I feel like that's why this younger generation maybe has a little bit of an upper hand, is because they're not going out deer hunting or taking an off season. They're going in and dialing in these new techniques. And if anything, that's where maybe I'm getting left in the dark a little bit because I don't have the time to practice with these techniques. When I go down to Murray or wherever I'm going, Florida, I go down, I got a week to practice for the tournament. You can't try as the bait that you don't even know if it works, if a fish eat it. You're trying to cover water. You're going to go with your confidence baits, because I could take a Coike, which at the time I didn't know if it worked. I could throw that over the best spot in the lake. If they don't like eating that bait, I could miss that spot. So I'm going to throw a vibrating jig or something I know they'll bite. So anyways, I feel like that's why these kids are getting the upper hand. They're dialing in these new techniques, and then they're ready to go for tournament and practice. They're confident with them, and they can use them in those situations.
They definitely are. You see them, but they gravitate to all that new stuff right away. And I think guys like you and me are really guilty of that. Like, man, let me see it get proven first. I can't waste time with all this crap.
Yeah. And if we were smart, we'd just watch what happens in Japan. and then be like, you know what? They're ahead of the curve when it comes to the fishing lures and stuff. And if it works there, it's probably going to work here, because that's what happened with the Coike. I think the minnow over there, and now they're probably on to the next technique. I actually had a chance to fish with a couple of the Japanese anglers. One works with Coike, and they said they can hardly even get bit on a Coike ball anymore. The fish, they don't really like it, but they've been using it for 10 years over there. So they're on to new techniques and stuff. So, and the same with the minnow over there. So in 4 or 5 years, it's going to be something new here, I believe.
Well, that's a little disheartening. We're on a ticking clock on this thing.
Well, hey, the good thing is no one get their hands on them, so the fish aren't seeing enough of them yet.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Well, we hopefully we'll get a drop sometime soon.
Hey, I'm not saying where, but in the next week they are coming to some local retailers, so be on the lookout for them.
Man, I'm scoping. I'll be looking. Well, you man, your brother started out leading this tournament with 29 pounds. I imagine you guys were on the same pattern. Like, did you guys run into each other?
No, after that first day of practice, we always kind of compare notes. I'm like, hey, you got to try throwing this Coike under docks. He's like, all right. He had one in his boat, and in 10 docks, he had like 5 bites. And he's like, okay, there's something to it. And but we tried to, I'm like, this is where I'm fishing. This is the area I want. I don't want to see your face anywhere around it. I'm like, you can do it, but do it where I'm not fishing, so we don't run into each other. And that's kind of how we usually do it, compare notes. But we try to not fish near each other. But if you can get onto a pattern or throw each other a bone, it works out well that way. So he was fishing a different area, but using the same techniques. And probably what killed him was he was fishing like a smaller area, and there was some fish reloading, but he wasn't running to some of the areas I was fishing. I had a little more water to fish.
Okay, well, but did your
stay out of there?
But did in your area, did they bring you out breakfast sandwiches?
No, but I had a cameraman that brought me Chick-fil-A's on day 3 and 4, which was unbelievable. So I got spoiled.
Man, you sure did.
Yeah, he said you got to do your work first, and then he said I'll bring out lunch, and luckily we got it done. So it was a well-deserved Chick-fil-A sandwich. He put it out in the boat, heated up for 20 minutes, and then it was awesome. I've never had that kind of service before.
Man, would you have to get a limit first before you could eat or something?
Yeah, we had to have 25 pounds. That's what he set the bar at. And then he said after we eat the Chick-fil-A, he said we're going for a 6. And it worked both days.
Oh man, that's a great camera boat guy to have. That's awesome.
Well, yeah, so hopefully we do it again on the basket tank. We'll get the same guy. I don't know if we'll set the bar at 25 pounds though.
I imagine everybody's going to be rocking that tool down on the basket tank.
Anyone that can get their hands on them. I've had many elite anglers saying, "Hey, how can I get a hold of some of these?" I'm like, I bought them off eBay, but I don't even know if you can buy many off eBay right now.
Wow. What's
people that have them are hanging on to them?
Yeah, $125 you paid, man. I can't imagine what the
I was lucky to win so I could pay my debts off. If not, I would have lost money that tournament for sure.
I'd have paid I'd have paid $500 for them. I imagine there'll be a customer out there for them. But the basket tank, I'm guessing post spawn, it's probably going to be the same pattern that you saw down at Santee, pretty close to it, I would guess.
Yeah, it's going to be post spawn. I'm sure brush piles will be in play. There's not the grass that we had on Santee, but it'll be post spawn. So with live scope. So I think you're going to see a lot of Coike fish caught, brush piles like on cypress trees. Any dock's probably going to have 100 Coike balls thrown at it because there's not many docks there. So it's going to be fun fishing regardless. The nice thing about the basket tank is it's so big. There's so much water to fish. The angles will be spread out. So you can kind of get in your own area and fish the way you want to.
Yeah, well, we'll look for that. Coach Prince has got a good question we didn't talk about. Did you experiment with weight and sink rates? What'd you come up with there?
Yeah, I ended up using an 1/8 ounce. I had one weight that was a little heavier, and I found it was sinking too quick. I really wanted that to sink as slow as it possibly can to keep it in that strike zone longer. I find the quicker it sinks, the less bites you get. And you can really see that and notice that on live scope. If you're twitching it and then all of a sudden it's falling too quick, the fish don't like that. If you can twitch it and it's just a very slow fall, that's when you're going to get more bites. So I was using an 1/8 on the full cast, and then it depends on the size of the treble hook, the weight of the treble hook, but you just want it. You want to fish it as slow as you can possibly get it to sink, but still fishable and get it in the strike zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense, because I've been experimenting with weights and, of course, rigging systems. But you're going to, at the Pasca tank, I guess the person that might win might come up with the best weedless over there.
But in saying that, with live scope, it's much easier to fish it because I can fish it in a brush pile and I'll twitch it above that brush pile without touching it, and the fish will come out and eat it. So it will be a little easier with live scope to fish that sort of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, but the guy that wins is going to be the guy that can drop it in the brush pile.
No, they'll swim out to get that thing right now, at least.
That's pretty cool. Well, and I don't know, I've never fished the Pasca tank. Is there barnacles there? I wonder if the dock piling.
It's horrible. It is horrible for barnacles. There's one creek I fished last time we were there, and I ran into Hackney, and I think he weighed in like 1 or 2 fish. He said he had 6 or 7 bites, but every one of them broke him off on barnacles. And I had the same thing. Like, even in practice, I was trying to shake fish off with no hook, and they would run into a tree or a root or something, and they would break my line with no hook on. There's that many barnacles in certain areas. So that brackish water, that's tricky there.
Well, what I learned on zebras, if flipping around zebras, I don't know if this will help or not, but when I noticed the difference from going from 25 to 30 was amazing. And how many more fish would survive with 30. So
good to know. I don't even have 30-pound test in my boat. I'm not gonna lie.
I had to buy it. I had to keep looking for it. So I'm like, I'm gonna find the test that works. But
no, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Well,
especially when you got a Coike on that you can't replace.
Especially then you can bend those trebles open and get the bait back with 30.
Yeah, you'd have to use a leader 30 because you wouldn't be able to cast it very good, but you can make it work.
Yep.
That might be onto something. Braid to a fluorocarbon leader.
That's the juice. That's exactly what I did to get through zebras when I flip around zebras, which is a rare thing that we see up north sometimes. But that's that. Well, I'm excited to see it. I mean, Kyle, he burned about a tablespoon of gas to totally dominate the tournament last year down there, or last time. And wonder, I can't imagine that's going to be the same situation. I don't know. Maybe it will.
No, I think it's going to be much more spread out. I'm not saying someone can't catch them in that area, but not like he did. You're going to have to expand on an area for 4 days because they were obviously spawning when he did it.
Yeah.
They're going to be post-spawn, so you're probably going to have to find some fresh fish each day and move around a little more. But I'm excited for it. There's going to be some giants caught, and it could be frog fishing. I've heard it's unbelievable, throwing a buzzbait up shallow in the cypress trees, or you could be catching them on brush piles and docks. So you never know, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, can't wait to watch. Talk to me about the Coike and smallmouth. What do you know, or willing to share?
What do I want to divulge? It works. It's no secret now. It works. But I use the 13, the little smaller profile, and there's actually one even a little smaller that'll work too. I had a prototype, but sometimes the fish are all over it, though. I will say this, and it'll outfish any bait in your boat. And then other times they won't eat it; they'll follow it. No rhyme or reason. I thought one tournament this past summer, I'm like, I'm going to blow this tournament out of the water on a Coike. Every fish I threw it at like 4 fish. I only had 2 of them in my boat, 2 Coikes. And I was like, I threw out 4 fish. Every one of them ate it. They're all like 5.5 to 6.5 pounds. And I'm like, I'm putting this away. I'm going to win the tournament on it. Come the tournament time, I could not get one to eat it. They'd follow it. I had a couple bump it, and they wouldn't eat it. Couldn't get a hook in them. And I ended up catching them on some old school smallmouth techniques. But I don't know what changed day to day. But there's some days they'll eat it, some days they won't.
Wow. Is it the same kind of reaction where if you're letting it drop, they want to feed up on it?
They want it just like a minnow, just like a
Right.
jerk bait. They want to feed up on it. Similar sort of action. You're working like a jerk bait, trying to get that reaction bite. I've played around with it on a drop shot a little bit too. Sometimes you can get them to eat it that way, but I find the reaction is the best thing to get them to bite. If they get to sit there and look at it for a while, I find I don't have as much success.
Right. Well,
But I don't want to go into too many details, but they will eat it.
yeah, we've got what's on the smallmouth schedule this year on the elites?
We got Lake Champlain up there in New York, which one of my favorite places to fish. What's going to be different this year is no live scope. So it's been dominated on smallmouth, live scoping over whatever, 25 to 50 feet of water. They chase alewives out there like crazy. So there's going to be a lot more largemouth fishing or different smallmouth techniques. I'm a little worried about that one because I used to do very well up there on smallmouth, and I had a bunch of rock piles marked just outside the grass. This is back in the old side scan days, and you drag a Carolina rig or drop shot over those rock piles. Well, in the past 4 or 5 years I've been there, I've live scoped over these rock piles and fished them, and there's no fish on them anymore. They have changed what they relate to there, their habitat. Now they're all floating, chasing bait, which is kind of scary because a lot of the stuff I used to have is no good there for smallmouth. And so I'm probably going to rely a lot more on largemouth on Champlain, try and figure that out. And Ticonderoga is going to be a player again. It hasn't been in years, but if someone can drive down there and put something together, they could have a legitimate chance of winning it down there. For those people that don't know Ticonderoga, it's 70 miles down from takeoff. So it takes you about an hour on a good day. That's running wide open, which you don't get very often on Lake Champlain. But Ticonderoga, in my experience, is very good in June and early July. For whatever reason, in August, it's not the best fishing. You can get onto some different patterns down there, but it's not prime in August. It's much tougher. So if someone go down there and figure it out in August when we go, I think they could win it down there. So that's going to be a fun tournament. You might be able to catch some smallmouth throwing jerk bait, topwater, and stuff like that. So we'll play around with that. But I do know for a fact a lot of my rock piles are vacant now. They don't live on them. And then the last tournament of the year is Lake Ontario, St. Lawrence River out of Clayton, New York. So there's going to be a few smallmouth caught that one, and I will have no largemouth rods or baits in my boat. That's one tournament. I'll have like 4 tackle boxes in my boat. That's it. And hopefully they bite one of those lures. And but what's really exciting this year for me is if I can have a good tournament on the Pasca tank, I should be pretty good on points to make the Bassmaster Classic, which is always every angler's top goal going into the year. So if I can be good in points and I get to Champlain, then I can gamble a little more. I could say, you know what, I'm going to spend 2 days down in Ticonderoga, see if I can figure that place out, and I'll have a legitimate chance at winning it if you can figure it out. But you might strike out after 2 days of fishing down there. Then all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, you're playing catch up. But what I'm saying is I can fish for the win. If I have a bad tournament, I'm okay with that. I'll still be good on points. I'm not going to be fishing for points in that tournament if I can have a good tournament on the Pasca tank. So, and then Lake Ontario, I'll go for the win regardless on that one. So that'll be fun. But it'll be nice fishing stress-free. I'm not worried about AOY, trying to battle it out for first place in AOY where I need the points. I'll be going for the win in the last couple.
Yeah, well, that'd be awesome to see, to get a couple more wins. I want to kind of go down this path with you. I want to ask you this question. Now we're doing half forward facing and half not. But I can't really call you an old guy. Let's call you a veteran. You've been highly competitive with the younger guys. Any advice for the guys that are out there and the weekend angler guys that are getting their butts kicked by the younger group with forward facing? Any advice on how they could better compete against those guys?
It's time on the water and practice is what it comes down to. I don't consider myself an expert at live scoping. I find it hilarious when people call me a scoper. I think I can do it good enough to get by. It's easy to go and live scope smallmouth on like Lake Ontario, Lake St. Clair. You don't get a lot of junk fish. They glow like big balls on your screen. You throw your bait out at them and they swim down and eat it. But it's much harder, I find, in the south to live scope because you got a lot of junk fish. You got catfish. You got everything, gar. So trying to figure out what's a bass and what's a junk fish is the hardest part about live scoping, I feel like, in the south. And what it comes down to is time on the water and throwing at these different fish. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that looks like a catfish. I know that. I've thrown at enough of them. But over here, that's a bass. It's sitting on the bottom. It's sitting on a stump. It's not moving. And it comes down to time on the water. And if you know someone like a young kid that maybe can take you in the water, what he could teach you in 6 hours would probably blow your mind. I went with Tucker Smith last year at a Bass Pro Shops deal, and how efficient he is on that live scope blew my mind. Like, he's going over fish. I'm like, I would have thrown at that. And he doesn't even throw at it. He just keeps going. And then he knows exactly what he's looking for, what's a bass, and then he'll throw in that one fish. And it would have took me a lot longer because I would have been casting all these different fish. And they're very good at identifying what's a bass. And that's the hardest part about it. And then the techniques, I think we can all do the techniques now. You can watch YouTube, learn very quick, keep the bait above their head and just try and get a reaction in them. But I think the hardest part is identifying what is a bass.
Right. Species identification, and that's time on the water. And
that's all it is.
Yeah. Every lake's different. Like you said, the northern lakes, they're not a lot of junk fish, but the other, you got cypress trees, docks, grass.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick those fish out of there.
Yeah. You scope under a dock and you got 2-pound crappies under there or 4-pound bass. You need to identify what's a crappie, what's a bass. And then obviously you need to be pretty good with the techniques and practice that a little bit. But I think the hardest part is saying, okay, that is a bass under that dock. I'm going to take 5 or 6 casts to try and catch it instead of making one cast and saying it's not a bass and move on.
All right. How long until the technology companies identify them as bass for it?
I'm wondering the same thing. Like, maybe they can tell by the size of their swim bladder or identify them and just it'll ping and be like, all right, largemouth, and that's a catfish. Yeah. Wouldn't that make our life easier? But it's amazing. And I learned live scoping from smallmouth, how much easier it is to live scope smallmouth up north than it is going in the south and learning down there. Because like I said, the junk fish is incredible. So it's much easier to learn on smallmouth. If you're starting to learn fresh, go to Lake St. Clair or something, throwing a drop shot at smallmouth, it's way easier to learn there.
Well, good. All right. Lake St. Clair here, Chris is sending everybody your way to
send it to Zona's old stomping grounds. catch his fish.
There you go. Sore-mouth them up there. Well, that's awesome. Well, what a great. By the way, it looks like Berkeley is dropping their new bait, the amoeba. I call it amoeba, whatever that one is. But that one's getting dropped next month, and apparently next week we got Justin, you're in charge. Justin Haran is in charge. You got to stalk the internet. We got to get first in line on this, Chris. We got to figure out where this new hideout.
Oh, where they're going. I don't know yet. And I'm saying just give me as many as you can, please. And they're being stingy, but they're like, we'll make sure you have enough for the Pasquotank. We promise you that. So they'll be going out in the next week or two. I can promise you that. And but every company is now coming out with their version of it. It's so hot. And I'm sure it's hard to get your hands on any right now that even look like it. But what makes the Coike special from other ones is the material it's made out of. So it's that hard plastic, and the tentacles are also pretty hard. So when you pull it, they don't just fold over and go soft. It keeps that profile and it pushes more water, in my opinion. And those tentacles almost vibrate because they're almost like a harder plastic. So if you pull it and it just comes like a blob and the tentacles all fold over, I'm not saying you can't get bit on it, but what makes the Coike special is it keeps its profile, pushes more water, and it pulsates a little more when you pull it. And that's what makes it so special, in my opinion.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, a couple more questions popped in. I want to hit with you real quick. Trevor is asking, how'd you separate yourself with the 30-pound bags? Were you doing any? Was it your sink rate? Was it your? I mean, you tell me. What do you think separated you?
It was running the pattern I was running. I was strictly fishing docks, which were the highest percentage, I think, on the lake. Throwing a Coike ball, which every big fish under those docks was going to at least look at and have a good chance at catching. If I wasn't throwing that Coike, there's no chance I would have caught 30 pounds to begin with. But then literally fishing every dock on that lake with a Coike is what set myself apart. And then the sink rate was key to get more bites. That I dialed in kind of in previous tournaments. The lighter weight. So we went into this earlier. The slower the bait falls, the more bites you're going to get. So if it sinks like a rock, goes to the bottom, you twitch it, it sinks back down, you won't get that many bites. But if you can get it to do a slow sink, and when you twitch it, it almost freezes and suspends. That's what you want. And then that fish is more likely to eat it. So that's how the presentation of the weighting system worked. And then the other key thing was how you work the Coike. Another thing that shocked me, I throw the Coike in, I'd let it, say it was 8 feet deep, I'd let it sink down 4 feet. Not one time did I have a fish eat it before I twitched that bait. So if you threw a jig, if you threw a Cinco or something, a lot of fish would come up, look at that and eat it on the fall. You'd feel the tick and you set the hook. On a Coike, not one fish ate it on the fall. They all needed that reaction. So when it fell and I twitched it, it was like I got their attention. They're like, okay, that thing's alive. What is it? And then I twitch it 1 or 2 more times, and that got their interest and actually got a reaction bite out of them. So if you just twitched it slow, let it sink to bottom, or just kind of pulled it, you wouldn't get any bites. So that retrieve was also a huge factor to catching 30 pounds.
What I noticed this, and I didn't. A lot of the footage shows you snatching it upward.
Yeah,
like was that it? Was that important?
That was me trying to keep it in the strike zone a little more. Yeah. So like I said, if it was 8 feet, I figured it was down 4 feet. I'd snatch it up to keep it kind of pulling up. If I snatched it to the side, I feel like it was sinking down with the fluorocarbon was sinking down, pulling it down closer to bottom. I wanted it up because I wanted to keep it in that strike zone, which ideally is halfway, whatever depth you're in, keeping the fish looking up at it. I didn't want it to go below them.
Okay.
Because they don't, whatever reason, they don't like chasing a bait as it's going down. If you're pulling a bait away from it, it's going up, they're more likely to keep chasing it. So that's why I was pulling it up.
Okay, good deal. Scent, did you use any?
I did not. I did not use any scent. That might be the next thing. Once they see a few Coikes, they'll kind of get used to it. But if you throw scent on one, that might get you a few more bites. But I did not use it.
Okay. Was 360? Trevor asked another good question. Was 360 available to you in this tournament? Did you use it?
Garmin. I had the Garmin version of it, and I did not use it just because I could visually see the docks, and I was fishing each one regardless. And to be honest, I'm not that good with it yet to try and identify fish. It would take me too much time to look at it and slowly look and say, oh, there's maybe a fish here. I just fish, make 2 casts of the dock, and keep going.
Okay. Well, hey, amazing win. 18-pound margin of victory. Just really dominant, man. Congratulations on that. And it's pretty awesome. We're on the cutting edge this time. After 2 years, you finally brought it out, Chris.
I wish I had bought way more back in the day when they were giving them away, begging me to use them. So, yeah. So I was lucky enough to be one of the first to kind of do it with no live scope. I'm sure there's lots of other people, but that I was just ahead of the tournament field this time a little bit. So that doesn't happen very often with these guys. They're so good. So very fortunate to have that tournament. And like I said, it was probably the best fishing I've ever had. So,
man, well, it was awesome. It was so fun to watch, and good luck at the Pasquotank and the rest. And we'll catch. Well, I'll see you up at Thousand Islands. We go up there every year in August, so maybe I'll bump into you out there on Thousand Islands this year.
All right, well, sounds good. I appreciate you having me on the show.
Hey, thank you, Chris Johnston, the champ. Everybody, another great win by the Johnston boys. They just are dominating over there, really killing it. What a neat deal. So all about the Coike, man. I learned so much. I hope you guys did too. I know you did. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to be back with some more Bass University.
We're off the clock to clock more fish, to fill our live wells and empty our coolers, because there's more to explore. The latest Humminbird fish finders work fast, see clearly, and know all the best spots. They fish even smarter paired with the Minn Kota, and break down the water like never before. If you like your plans loose and lines tight, then it's time to explore. Only with Humminbird. Get right to the fight. New Mega Live 2 forward-facing sonar puts you on more fish with an ultra-clear, rock-solid picture of underwater action. Next-gen clarity, next-level fun. Only with Humminbird.
That is the critical thing, because you've got to be comfortable jerking that jerkbait around your body. You're always going to be working it with your rod tip down, maybe a little bit to the side.
You're going to lose traction on that fish. He's going to flop off because he's got this big heavy weight flopping out of his mouth.
And to a bass, that signals in their brain that that is an easy meat.
They want to feed up, but they don't want to lose that object. That fish was shallow, he was parallel to where I'm standing.
Reading that screen, watching, throwing, casting, learning.
At Whitewater Fishing Gear, we build gear for the days that test your commitment. The ones launching before daylight, staying out when the wind picks up, and fishing through conditions most guys avoid. Engineered for protection, mobility, and all-day comfort. Built to perform when conditions turn rough, so you stay focused on the pursuit no matter how the elements shift. Whitewater Fishing Gear, built to brave the wave.
When the sun's up and the bite's on, clarity is everything. That's why serious anglers trust Redfin. Built for the water, designed for performance. Lightweight frames, crystal clear optics, and rugged durability that stands up to long days on the water. Thanks to Zeiss Repel technology, water, oil, and even sunscreen just slides right off the lenses. Your vision stays crystal clear. See more, fish smarter, and protect your eyes with Redfin. Redfin polarized sunglasses. Comfort, clarity, contrast.
Mother Nature may be tough. I'm tougher. I'll take you where chaos is the cost of entry and where the fish are worth the fight. Because the bigger the question marks, the better the quest.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I want to give a shout out to Whitewater because it rained all weekend up here. I was out on the water with the high school tournaments, and just rain. So that Whitewater gear kept me dry and warm, and I appreciate that. That was pretty spectacular. What a cool deal with learning so much about the Coike. So fascinating to see a bait after all this time, something that the fish haven't seen, they're really going nuts for. And guys, it's going to be hard to get them, but highly advise you get out there and give it a go. And thanks for all the great questions. Appreciate you, Trevor, for chiming in. And you're right, the retreat does seem like a jerkbait. That's what everybody's calling it. It's kind of like a jerkbait retrieve that's triggering the strikes. But to listen to Chris talk about it was fascinating, that letting that bait drop, and it's such a natural tendency. Like for someone like me, I'm a flipper. I want to let that bait drop into the habitat, and so many strikes are triggered that way. But it doesn't seem to be the case with this weapon. You know, it's got to be up. It's to be able to trigger those strikes, especially from the bigger ones. So pretty fascinating stuff. Guys, download the app. Go check it out. If you haven't done it yet, go download the new Bass University app. Justin, I want to bring up this week's subscriber of the week. We've talked about him a little bit, but shout out to the boys. Jack and Jake for winning down on the Chesapeake. A tough day. We had to take you guys through that day a little bit. It was rainy. It was 15-mile-an-hour winds with gusts up to 25 on the upper Chesapeake Bay. And as a result of those nasty weather conditions, the tournament director, shout out to Jerry Hodge for putting that together, and Tony Osborne, the president and VP of that club and that program, to put this great tournament together for the boys. That was fantastic. But they closed it off into the Northeast River to keep everybody safe, and that was really cool. So the pattern that the boys were working on, we were planning on going to fish the grass, but we had a really strong blowout tide, and it really, impacted the ability to fish in the grass. Those grass fish, if you guys have ever fished tidal grass, you know that the low tides, the really low tides, make those fish skittish, hard to catch. So the boys shifted gears and started flipping and pitching around, and they managed to catch them, a good bag of fish and do really well in that tournament. So pretty awesome stuff. A lot of fun to participate in, and thanks again for the guys, both Jerry and Tony, for putting that stuff together. Great giveaways. The guys got to get some lures and great trophies. Just making memories down there was really spectacular. Hopefully they'll be bringing some better weather with them next time. So that's what's going on, guys. We got what do we got going on? We've got at Bass University, the release this week, and this is really great stuff. Caleb Sumrall, Bassmaster Elite Pro, is talking about flipping around the spawn, and this is going on right now. In our neck of the woods, all the way down to Santee Cooper, the post spawn is on, and the flip and bite is a really effective way to catch them. I was just out doing a little bit of that yesterday on the Delaware River, flipping around fry garters and flipping in heavy habitat. Really, really effective way to get them this time of year. So I want you guys to go check that out. Flipping and pitching is going to continue to be a dominant way to catch fish and catch big fish. So you guys want to go check that out. And next week, we make a really cool turn with Emil Wagner, who is really a dominant angler, making a name for himself. You see him out there on the elites, getting it done. And topwater time it's summertime. It's topwater time. Everybody loves it. And it's going to be it starts in the post spawn, starts right now. And we've got some unique stuff going on in our area. The carp have just started spawning. If you guys see that carp spawn going on in the grass around the lily pads, they're bringing in the entire food chain, and it also lets you know that it's topwater time. It's frog time, and it's topwater time. So it's coming. So what's coming at Bass University is Emil Wagner is coming with a topwater seminar next week. So look for that. As always, new educational content directly dialed into what's happening in the world of fishing right now. So that's going to be going on right now. Thank you, guys. Thanks everybody for watching today. Thanks for being part of these great questions that were coming in. I want to give a shout out to Wild Bill. It's great to see you on the chat board, and great to have you part of the program. And thanks again for rooting for Jake. Congratulations again to Jake and Jack for doing their deal. They're going to be competing again at the New Jersey State Championship, which is going to be going on at Merrill Creek at the end of this month. Well, the end of June. I'm sorry, it's about a little more than a month away. So we look forward to that. And thanks everybody for watching, guys. We're going to be back next week with another episode of Bass University Live. We'll keep you posted. Get out there and do some fishing in the post spawn. Go enjoy it. Have fun. We'll see you next week on Bass University Live.